This is lecture 31. I call it Gender in Contemporary World History. Let's talk about gender as a factor of analysis. Gender has only been recognized as a legitimate factor of analysis since 1980s, 1990s. Gender has joined race and class as ways of bringing critical analysis to the past. Understand that gender pertains to masculine and feminine. Understand that sex refers to male and female. These are different things. You've all known men who behaved in a feminine fashion. You've known women who behaved in a masculine fashion. So sex and gender are not the same thing. They're used synonymously, and that is incorrect. Sex is biology. Gender is culture. Gender is the meaning we attribute to your sexuality. Sex is the plumbing you're born with. Gender is the meaning we apply to that plumbing. Sex is mostly universal. Gender changes from place to place and time to time. Gender is made up, it's created, it's invented. Just to give you an example from antiquity, Patriarchy, a practice among the ancient Greeks, has not survived into the modern era. And of course, Patriarchy brings into sharp focus the changing nature of masculinity. In our own time, of course, if you go to a baby shower and you have twins, a little boy and a little girl, you're going to find presents for the little boy are blue and presents for the little girl are pink. This is gender. This is invented. This is created by us. It's cultural. It's not natural, and it's not universal. We don't do this in New Guinea, for instance. This is something peculiar to our civilization. I'll give you a quick example of how people can transgress gender, and it tends to grab people's attention when you do so. A few years ago, my Honda was making an odd noise in the chassis, and I took it to a garage, and they put it up on the lift, and then the manager came to me with a long list of repairs that he wanted to do. And it was going to be quite expensive. Seems like it was like $1,200 or something. So I immediately called my wife, who is a car broker. Now, she knows everything about automobiles. I know how to crank one and drive one. That's about it. So I said, honey, I think I'm getting ripped off. And she said, well, just don't do anything. I'll be right there. So Helene came down to the garage. She took the estimate and she tore it apart, line by line, showing that the garage manager was indeed trying to rip me off. I noticed while this confrontation was going on, I noticed that all the mechanics in the garage had stopped working and were all watching with amazement as a woman was doing a man's job. A garage is gendered masculine, and women are not supposed to be in a garage taking charge and dictating what's about to happen. And of course, this is exactly what my wife was doing. And so it was a source of great amusement and wonder to the mechanics. Now, let's talk about patriarchy here for a moment. This is from the Latin, of course. P-A-T, the prefix, is father. The suffix here pertains to hierarchy or levels of within a society. Now, generally speaking, the father or male leadership is assumed as natural and universal. Law, custom, these things uphold traditional patriarchy and have for millennia. World religions at times establish spiritual equality among men and women, and this can lead to trouble. Proper roles of conduct for men and women taken by Europeans on their voyages of exploration. So the Europeans have set ideas about proper gendered behavior, and then when they go to North America and Australia and South America, they find that the indigenous people do not necessarily follow the same gendered expectations. English settlers in North America believe the Indians had confused their gendered roles. The English were appalled that men hunted and fished while women worked in agriculture, slash and burn type of agriculture. For English settlers, hunting and fishing were the pastimes of aristocrats. At least that was so back in Europe, not so in North America. For English settlers, men should farm while women should tend to the household. So in the eyes of the English, the Indians had their gender roles all confused. And this, of course, creates tension and conflict between the two. Remember that space is gendered, masculine and feminine. We just talked about the garage being a masculine space. Generally speaking, in history, public space is gendered masculine. Public space is where politics take place. It's where commerce is conducted. That's men's work. The private sphere or private space is generally gendered feminine. This, of course, is where the woman rules the home and raises the children. And this can cause confusion when space appears to be misused. Patriarchy declines and gender is reimagined, and certainly in the 20th century. These assumptions, these traditional assumptions, are increasingly challenged. There are reforms for liberation across much of the globe, not everywhere, but in the core countries, let's say. Women gain access to the public sphere through voting. In time, women will gain access to the university system and will be able to actually acquire an education like their brothers and their fathers. Women can find careers increasingly in art. You find women going to law school and going into to medicine. Women seeking careers outside the home. Again, this tends to transgress what we expect from gendered behavior. And of course, many women who work outside the home are still expected to take care of the home and to take care of the children. Men have worked this out quite well for themselves. Remember that women were key actors in resisting colonial oppression here in the United States. You might remember there was a non-importation movement in the 1770s, just prior to the American Revolution. Here, women became political actors in that they were convinced not to buy British imports. We wanted to punish the British for their oppression. So we convinced women, the wives and daughters, to make their purchases based on place of origin as opposed to quality or price. This is a way of punishing the British. Women would sew their own clothes since we weren't importing cloth from England. This tended to spur domestic manufacturing. It created a sense of equality among the sexes. So you can see numerous examples. I'll just give you one other. The tradition of sati, S-A-T-I, in India, whereby the widow throws herself on her husband's funeral pyre because with his death she now becomes dependent. And it's more honorable for her to kill herself and to follow her husband into death than it is to live on as a dependent. I'm just going to close here by talking about some agents of change when we discuss gender. Urbanization, where you crowd millions of people into a small area. Women are able to see that people live quite different lives. There are numerous alternatives. There are fewer children needed in an urban setting, so women are not constantly pregnant over the course of from their 20s to their 40s. Increasingly in the 20th century, you have modern healthcare systems. You have the wide dissemination of birth control as we move deeper into the 20th century rather. Women's rights become a very visible and often controversial topic. Increasingly, there's a push for legal equality for women, equal pay for equal work. Women gain access to divorce. Women gain title to property. They gain access to political office, even access to sports. Title IX within the NCAA is quite well known to most of you. And patriarchy, of course, is not compatible with legal equality. Patriarchy places women down the hierarchy virtually as property of the male. And of course, non-government organizations are formed worldwide on the behalf of women's rights, seeking to end abuse of women in one fashion or another and to promote equality. International networks created to advocate women's rights. So again, this is a global issue, And it's hard to make generalizations because there's so many different cultures and so many traditions are maintained. But slowly and certainly over time, contemporary gender has changed dramatically in the 20th and 21st centuries. So I'll stop there. Thank you.